wanted to begin this morning with two things that don't really have anything to do with my talk, which is entitled, Your Fortune Begins With You. Thank you. Your fortune begins with you. Is that better? Okay. And the first is to let you know, yesterday I attended a very interesting conference. And I attended because I was asked to do a burning bowl ceremony. How many of you are familiar with what a burning bowl? Yeah, okay. This was a burning bowl, though. Normally we do burning bowl, at least in my experience, at New Year's, where you release the old year and bring in the new. But I have had burning bowl ceremonies for releasing things during the year for people. It's very powerful. And in this particular conference, I will say, this was a conference of parents who had lost their only child. And it was, from the get-go, as you might imagine, a very challenging time. And they wanted to do the burning bowl to release whatever it was that they were holding, whatever that might be. And then we said, but what shall we do? Because normally during the burning bowl, we write letters to God as the affirmation or the affirming part of life. So I thought and I prayed and I talked to a friend, and we decided we would have the folks write a love letter to the child that had passed. Now, you can see how that was a very beautiful, I think, balancing. And most of the people there felt that way. At the end of the service, or the ceremony, or the ritual, whatever, and many of these people, most of them were not unity people, and many of them were very angry with God, as you also might imagine. A couple of those angry folks came up and said, I feel good, and it hasn't anything to do with God. And I waited, didn't say anything, and I just smiled. And then the second person said, do you think maybe it does? And the first person says, well, okay, I'm willing to entertain the thought. Now, I'm telling you this by way of telling you that, my friends, is a prosperity consciousness. And I'm bringing it right into this morning, even though I just told you I'm not sure it has anything to do with my talk. Can you see the various layers of agenda here running? Of course it has everything to do with my talk. Your fortune begins with you. And what does that mean? It has nothing to do with money. It has to do with the way we think, our attitude about life. And the person who felt so angry and so at odds with God was suddenly willing to entertain the thought, maybe there's something here. Maybe, just maybe, there is something here. So, I say to you, that is a prosperous consciousness. That's a consciousness that's willing to open, even from a time of great closure, of great pain, to say, okay, I'm willing. And being willing is one of the foundations of having a prosperity consciousness. So many of us get very tripped up in unity about these prosperity teachings. Because first off, the word prosperity usually to most people means how much money do you have in the bank, and how many cars do you have in the garage, and how many homes do you own? Which really, that is the demonstration of a prosperity consciousness, or not. And some of you say, what? Well, of course it's a demonstration of prosperity consciousness. If a guy's got $1 million in the bank and 4 cars in the garage and 3 houses, I'd say he's thinking pretty good. Well, let me tell you about 2 friends I have. And these are 2 true friends. And both of them consider themselves prosperous. One friend has an enormous amount of money. I can't even tell you how much money that person has. And here's how he treats his money. When he invites me over, he will say, well, come in the house and I'll meet you at the front gate. He'll come to the front gate and he'll ask the gatekeeper, to let me in. There's a fence that slides back. The gatekeeper lets me in. My friend walks me up to the house and unlocks the front door. Now, I don't know about you, but when I go home, I go in the garage and I go in the side entrance. There's not a whole lot of locking going on. But this friend is so into his possessions, his prosperity. He has everything under lock and key. He will show me his collection of beautiful art, and it's all framed and it's all in a room that's locked. He will show me some of his most beautiful prized possessions from his many travels throughout the world. And they're in a room that's of a certain temperature, in a certain condition, and guess what? It's locked. My other friend, when she invites me to her home, and I'm no gender specific here, I go to her home, and the first thing she does is let the front door fly open, welcome me in, hands me something to drink or to eat, and then proceeds to show me around her magnificent home. And as she's doing that, she very humbly says, "Isn't this beautiful? I'm so grateful to have this. This is so wonderful to have this in my life." And then she'll turn to me and give me a hug and say, "And you're wonderful to have in my life too." Now, who do we think has the prosperity consciousness there? Who is the one that joys and revels in all that she has been given? And who is the one that's counting? 1, 2, 3, 4. Was 4 there last night? I certainly hope so. 5, 6, 7, 8. That, my friends, is a simple demonstration of how we look at our world and how we may look at what it means to be prosperous. So when we get into this particular time, last week we talked about if you can believe, and this little series I'm doing on prosperity consciousness comes primarily from Eric Butterworth's book, Spiritual Economics. And last week we talked about if you can believe in some of these prosperity teachings, you can demonstrate prosperity. If you believe that your prosperity comes from God and God alone. You know, we have this marvelous affirmation in unity. God is our source, our only source. And some of you are already saying in your minds, well, no, that's not true. I mean, you know, I have investments. I have friendships. God is our source. God is our only source in all of those things. You may have avenues and people from whom you experience abundance, but all of that abundance is God, because God is in all. God is the all. So that is the key to your fortune begins with you. The key is remembering always to keep your eye and your heart stayed on God. When the outside influences of just, let's say, the economic situation get to be of a dire nature, we're going to have a full-blown recession. The stock market's down. And if we buy into that without going to God as our source, then what happens is the collective thinking gets into boom, 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 down the hill. And we go down with it. And we participate in the going down. When you believe that your fortune begins with you, you have the belief that you can change how you think about your own prosperity and how prosperous you are. That's one of our great teachings. That's an ancient teaching, not just a unity teaching. You can change the way you think. What did we just sing? Our thoughts are prayers. Our thoughts are prayers. If your thoughts are in a prayerful state, if your thoughts are coming from the heart of your being, from the God of your being, then your eyes and your heart are stayed on God and not those outside influences. And if you believe, track it back now, that God is my source and my only source for all my good, then when you track it back and you stay in that consciousness, in that belief, all of these outside factors will not influence the way you feel about your own prosperity in your own life. Some of you are already saying, possibly, wow, that's all very nice, except when I don't have enough money in the bank to pay the bills, or when I'm not sure how I'm going to get through, if I'm going to get through retirement, I don't know how I'm going to put my kid through college. You have already started to collect a negative kind of thinking. Yeah, maybe you don't have a clue how you're going to get through retirement. Yeah, maybe you're not sure how you're going to pay for the college education. That's a fact. That's a thought. Let it go. If you attach to that thought again and again and again, you will have many a sleepless night. Where if you can instead say, okay, I'm not really sure how I'm going to do this, but I know I'm going to do it, and I am going to open to creative ways that will flow in and through me from my source, my only source, that will help me solve this problem. Now let's jump back to last week. What was the talk title? If you can only believe. And some will sit right out there and say, I don't know if I can do that one. You know, that sounds pretty good, but I just don't know. I'm really not quite there. And I say to you, good, own it. And then ask yourself, are you willing to take another step? Are you willing to try and move forward with going to God first, your only source? Or what happens many times is the thinking becomes what we call entropy. This is a scientific term. When our thoughts become attached to feelings, they start to build on one another. They are attached, and we feel fear because we may not be able to accomplish something. And it doesn't always have to do with money, as you know. Very often it has to do with relationships. I may not be good enough for this person. I don't think this will last. I just don't know if I can participate in this. Think of a reason, attach a feeling, and then watch it go over and over and over, and eventually that takes up root. That takes up what we call a nice little furrow in the brain. And the one thought builds on the negative, on the negative, on the negative, and down that hill we go again. When we have a choice of syntropy, which is synthesis of the good of God, of going to God first, I can do this. Yeah, I might not know how, but I know that I can if I stay on God. Do you see how that forces us into, if only I can believe? Do you really trust? Do you really understand that your true fortune of any kind, is within you? It's a huge gift to know that, and it's a huge, for some people, responsibility, burden, and challenge. You mean I'm responsible for the good that I have in my life? Yes, that is exactly what I mean, and that is exactly the teaching. So some people will back that up and say, ooh, I'm not real happy with what I got going here. And then they back it up even further and they start to blame themselves because they aren't manifesting prosperity in their lives. My friends, I didn't say that. I said, how's your thinking? Are you manifesting your thinking? This is not about lackadaisical demonstration of how many cars you have in the garage. It has to do with the demonstration of your thinking and being in life. How's your life looking? Are you happy with it? And if you're not, why is that? Is there something that you are willing to change? How about your thinking? How about the way you go about your life? I want to warn against, Chick read a great, I'll call it a quote this morning from Einstein about miracles. How about we believe that our miracles are all the time? How about we believe that there's no such thing as a miracle? How many times in unity have you heard people say, expect a miracle? Butterworth, and I happen to agree with him, say, no, there's no such thing as miracles. It's the natural progression of an abundant way of being. The miracle, or as we call it a miracle, shows up after there has been a demonstration internally of an alignment of feeling and thought that are prosperous. And some of you may be sitting there saying, I don't believe that. And I will say to you, good. Because you need to challenge yourself. If you believed everything that I stood up here and said, or everything that Butterworth wrote, please, people, that's not what we're about. We're here to live and love and learn. And you won't get there if you don't believe it yourself, if you don't own it. You know the expression, we know what we know what we know. I like that expression because no one can tell you really what you don't know. And when something comes along that resonates with you, great. If something comes along that maybe doesn't, but you're willing to consider it, to work it into the way that you think and be, I say bravo. And these prosperity lessons about miracles, about luck, that's another one that we use. Oh, I got lucky with that one. Well, in my world, there's no such thing as luck. You demonstrate how you are in life. And for those of you that say, well, I'm not demonstrating much in the material world, that's not what prosperity is about, folks. It's the demonstration of an attitude of gratitude, an attitude of appreciation for all, in all. It's that love of life. It's that saying, yes, I believe that my prosperity is mine to share, to be, and to know. And no one can take that from me, and no one can measure it. That is your prosperity with the God of your being. And it begins with you and how you work at that, how you come up to that. Because I believe having a prosperity consciousness is a coming up higher in consciousness. It's an expansion of an awareness of who we are and how we relate to the God of our being. So I would say your level of prosperity reflects your thinking. And then the other thing I would say is you can be on the side of the problem or you can be on the side of the solution. And we have that choice every single day. Do you live in a minus consciousness or do you live in a plus consciousness? Are you looking for the good? Are you looking for the blessing? Are you expecting the miracle? Are you the miracle? Is there a miracle? And some may say, oh, Jesus, she continues on this round and round. Yes, it's round and round because I want you to be round and round. I want you to clearly understand what you believe. And prosperity teachings, my friends, are a challenging way to bring that out because it affects us on many, many levels. And we still, as a culture, as a community, are very confused about the word prosperity. Consciousness, a prosperous consciousness in all things. And leave that to demonstrate the manifestation. Don't try and push the manifestation and say, look, here it is, I'm prosperous, I got it. And that's not how it's done. You are your prosperity. It comes from within. And we talk about that a lot. We say it a lot in Unity. But very often we have trouble where it comes from the believing of it and then the doing of it. And we call ourselves practical Christians. Being practical does not mean we have to smack down a demonstration, a physical demonstration of prosperity. It means we are prosperity. We are the prosperity we seek, right here, right now. If you believe, if only you believe, your fortune begins with you, here and now. It's your choice. And it's such a blessing because you can choose again and again and again. You can rethink and re-feel how you are going to approach life. We're done. Amen.